Hello students, this is your teacher Manish, and in continuation with our discussion on programming in Java, in last two videos we took a deep dive on computing environment, and we also saw what are the different generation of languages. First generation, which is machine level language; second generation, assembly language; third generation, 3GL, typically what we call examples were C, C++, Java, Python, and fourth generation we took an example of SQL. Typically in third generation we code how to do, whereas in fourth generation typically we tell what to do. So update, insert, these are the straight instructions and we don't care how it is done. Okay, we also took a bit of a deep dive in understanding the data elements, which were the elementary data elements, and we took C as an example, and we spoke a lot about int, float, char, what array is, what structure is. So if you want to quickly brush your fundamentals, basics, and if you have not seen these videos, I suggest you watch my first two videos on fundamentals of computing environment and different generations of language. Taking this discussion forward, today I want you to introduce you to object oriented. Okay, see, and basically if you see around you, okay, you will find a lot of objects. Okay, so there is a tube light around, there are fans, there is a table, okay, there are chairs. So this world comprises of different objects, okay, and every object has got attributes. Okay, so when I see a fan, immediately I could see that a fan has got a blades, then fan has got color, fan is having some manufacturer who has actually manufactured the fan. Okay, so if you see a car, so car would have different attributes. Car is object, so manufacturer of a car, whether a car is a hatchback or car is a sedan, okay, color of a car, cc of engine or power of engine. Okay, so there are different attributes for every object. Okay, so basically what is a class? Here we will get introduced to the word, okay, class. And typically if anybody sees the way the class is nothing but a blueprint. Okay, and this is the typical word that's used. Okay, so when you say a class is a blueprint, means what? Okay, or what does this word really reminds you? So if you see a plan developed by an architect of a house, okay, it's a blueprint, right? So this is nothing but, class is nothing but a framework, a structure. Okay, and a class comprises of different attributes, and a class comprises of what could be the operations that could be done on that attribute. So if I say that a class is a blueprint of car, okay, so if I say I have a class of type car, okay, then what I will have is I will have different attributes. First attribute could be like manufacturer name. Second attribute could be date and year of manufacturing. Third attribute could be color. Fourth attribute could be category or type of car, whether it is a SUV or a sedan or a hatchback. And later you might have different operations that could be done on a car. So car in motion, stationary car, okay, change gear of a car. So this could be different I would say operations that could be done on a car. You could also have here something called as speed, which is another attribute. So if speed is 0, car is stationary. If speed is non-zero, car is moving. Okay, so these are the different attributes, and these could be different operations. There could be many operations. This could be different operations that could be performed on a car. Okay, now remember one thing, that when I have a car as a class, I can create an object, okay, like C1, C2, and I can have a type of objects C1 and C2 as car. Okay, if you see the elementary object types or elementary variable, say if I have to define a variable of type integer, if I define two variables x and y, this is nothing but my data type, right? And these are the names of my variables. These are names of my variables. So basically I have int as my data type, and I have x and y as names of the variables. Similarly, what I can actually have is, I can have car as my data type, and I have C1 and C2 as the variables. Here C1 and C2 are nothing but two objects. So I define two objects of type car, and this car is nothing but my blueprint, okay, of class car. Okay, so basically car becomes my user defined data type. So anything and everything in this world, I can actually define it as a data type. Now see the limitations that actually I had in elementary data type. My everything in elementary data type used to rotate around integer, float and character. The moment I got a flexibility of creating my own data types, I can actually convert, okay, I can actually convert anything and everything as a data type. I can build a blueprint of that data type by defining it as a class, and then I can declare the objects of that data type. C1 and C2 are two objects of type car, and my car is nothing but a class. Now this is quite similar to what structure in C was, but there is very important difference. In structure, I used to have only members. My members were nothing but the attributes which you see here. But in class, apart from members, I can also have methods, and these methods are nothing but functions in C. So my class is a combination of attributes and methods, and these methods are actually used to manipulate my attributes. So a class becomes a complete package of data and functions or methods that could manipulate that data. Okay, and this basically is nothing but data encapsulation. So let me repeat again few things which I had already mentioned, okay, for better understanding. A class is a framework, a class is a blueprint, a class comprises of attributes and operations or methods which could manipulate those attributes, which could manipulate the values of those attributes. An object is an instance of a class. See the word I am using. An object is an instance of a class. So I give another example, okay, of a fan. So let us quickly see how that fan could also, how we can write a class of fan as well. Okay, so all that I have to do is I have a class named fan. Okay, now fan again will have certain attributes. So what are my attributes? Attribute number 1 is manufacturer name. Then I could have number of blades could be my second attribute. My third attribute could be color, right? So if these three are my attributes, then I can have operations like start fan, stop fan. Okay, then I can have basically another operation like change speed. Okay, one more attribute I would like to add over here is stationary, yes or no. So stationary, if it is no, which means it's moving. So if these are 4 attributes, this could be another this could be methods, this could be functions which would help me to change the values of attribute. There could be set manufacturer name. Okay, there could be another attribute as set number of blades. Okay, so these are basically different methods. Okay, so class is nothing but combination of attributes and methods which will manipulate those attributes. Okay, now another important thing, what is the strength of object oriented? Basically, if you see the structured programming, all the old programming languages which were basically functional or structured procedural programming languages, when the applications were developed in those languages, the prime focus was to basically automate the business process. Say for example, a sales business process. Okay, so a salesperson takes the order, does the entry of the order gets confirmed, the stock is checked whether whatever order is raised, whether the items are available in the stock or not. If items are available, order is fulfilled. If items are not available, items are either procured or manufactured, and then order is fulfilled. So this is the business process, I would say, at a very high level for sales. Okay, in a typical structured programming or structured systems design, the objective is to automate the process, whereas in object oriented, the objective is to automate the data flow. The objective is to identify the objects which are there within the flow and then make those objects communicate with each other. So if I have to give an example of sales here, your actually order becomes one of the object. Okay, your item becomes another object, and then what you do is the confirmation of sales order is nothing but the changing of the attribute, one of the attribute of order object. Okay, once the item stock is checked, okay, confirmation further or delivery of the fulfillment of the order becomes the changing of the attribute of order object. Okay, so the complete approach changes as far as systems development is concerned, And there are certain aspects, or I would say properties. Say for example, data encapsulation is achieved through object oriented. As I said, typically in functional or procedural programming languages, what happens is you have functions and procedures. Okay, say for example, this is your main program, and you would have functions and procedures around it, which are typically called. Okay, and here you have global variables as well. Okay, and your functions would have local variables, as well as the functionality here. You would have functionality here, and the functions would get called from here. Now what happens is, these variables, which are global variables, reside in your program. The moment you take object oriented approach, the global variables aspect goes, and in fact everything is the communication between the objects. So these are all objects, and your variables and your methods, this is nothing but your attributes or your methods, right? They are all encapsulated within the objects, and then these objects actually communicate with each other for the system to function. So object will talk to each other and the system actually functions. So this is the basic difference between a normal structured procedural programming and object oriented programming. And so encapsulation, then things like inheritance, polymorphism, okay, those all things we will further experience as we start learning or getting deeper into the Java coding. So objective today was to get you introduced to what class is, get you introduced to what object is, use certain aspects like a object is an instance of a class, class is a framework. So declaration of a class, what exactly class means, okay, what is a blueprint. Okay, say for example, when an architect creates a blueprint of a bungalow, and if all the people who are interested to build a bungalow decides to use the same blueprint, okay, and they start constructing the bungalow using same blueprint, what you will see is at the end of the day, all bungalows which are developed look all similar, all same. So here my class is nothing but the blueprint, which is a plan developed by architect, and my instance of class would be bungalow number 1, bungalow number 2, bungalow number 3. If there are 10 bungalows, I have 10 objects which are created using the framework of this class, using the blueprint of this class. So class instance is nothing but an object, and every object will have its own attributes. For example, although the structure and skeleton of these bungalows are same, but somebody just might decide to give different colors. Okay, so color of object 1 would be different from color of object 2. Okay, and that's how the instance of object is tangible. Instance of object has got values for those attributes which are declared in those framework. Okay, so class is a user defined data type. It gives immense amount of flexibility for the user, for the developer to declare any data type that exists around this world, and hence you can make an attempt to replicate exactly what is around you by declaring a data type or by declaring a class of tree, by declaring a class of car, by declaring a class of chair, a table. So all the objects around you can have a class, and number of, so if there are 10 chairs are nothing but 10 instances of class chair. So number one chair is nothing but first object, number two chair, so these are tangible objects. Okay, I hope you would have got sufficient introduction now in terms of computing environment, in terms of different languages, in terms of understanding the basics of object and classes. Okay, in our next video we are going to start with Java, where I will give you some history of Java, what JVM is, what at a high level architecture is, what JDK is. Okay, how do you compile a Java code, or where is Java compiler? Okay, and once we understand this environment, once we understand the Java aspects, we would be actually starting with our first program of Hello World in Java. So I think this was sufficient for this video. If you like this video, do like, do share it. If you have any comments, and if provide me comments. The objective today was to not get into object oriented analysis and design or object oriented software engineering, because those are subjects and modules in their own respect. Those will require different playlists altogether. The objective was to introduce you to the theory, to the aspects of class and object, which will give you sufficient visibility, sufficient background to start Java programming. Okay, so with this I am ending this video. Thanks a lot.